All right, so continuing with our Cubist mask-inspired project, I have my sketch just open on the desktop as a JPEG. Remember, I'm going to be turning this in. And now I want to look at my sketch, and I want to look at the way I've brought over all of these different pieces. And I want to see if I did everything that I was thinking of, right? And I didn't. I changed my mind on some areas, right? But before I finish this off, I've brought over every file from my different assets files that I want to use, but I can still go back to these assets. You know, I can open them up in Photoshop, and there's a lot of individual layers there that can be used. Maybe I have that open off to the side here. There's still a lot I can do. I only use groups. So if I wanted more teeth, I have a lot of individual exposures I could use for that. And I have some different points of view on the mouth, like looking down on it. Let me see. And so, for instance, what would I do if I decided I needed more assets? I just grab one layer when I have auto select layer checked, drop it on, transform it, and make sure you hold down Shift as you shrink it. And you can play with it that way. If I feel like I need a little bit more underneath, I can take this whole batch of photos, bring them over. I already have, actually. So I'm going to delete those and instead bring over some of these individual photos that might give a little bit of texture that leads away. So now I'm just making compositional choices. Rotating individually, placing. Yeah, I kind of like that. I like the teeth going in some weird directions. Okay, so step one was to bring your sketch in. Step two was to bring in exposures on top of your sketch. Yeah, I just don't think I need those. And I turn some of them on and off depending on what you think they're doing. This one's not helping. This one's not helping. So I'm going to get rid of any extra exposures I don't need. This one's not helping. Yeah, I think it's interesting more interesting without that one. So now I've got all the exposures I need. And in order to see it kind of clearly, I need to turn off the background, and the next thing I want to do is save this step as a JPEG. This isn't my final, but this is my final before I've done kind of overall processing and really kind of treating it as my finished art project. So this is basically, you save a JPEG once you have all of the exposures you want to use all in one place, even though we might play with them a little bit more. Okay? So to save that, I say File, Save As, and I'm going to give it the name Carl Assignment 6. And instead of Godzilla Mask Project, I'll call it something like Unprocessed. To the desktop as a JPEG. because there are three things you're going to turn in. One of them is your sketch. One of them is this unprocessed grouping of your exposures, of your selected exposures. Doesn't need to be every exposure you took. And so let's look at that in preview and kind of anticipate the next step. And what I like about saving as a JPEG is it gives you that white background, and you can see how that shape is helping to tell the story. But what I'm seeing when I just see my exposures is everything feels very kind of dark and murky in here. And I want the eye to swim around. And so now I'm going to play a little bit with processing individual layers, but as soon as I can, once I'm able to, I'm going to link all of these and merge these together into one TIFF file format, which has no background. So how can I make this less murky? Well, I can use my auto select layer, pick individual ones, and play with their levels. Like brighten their midtones, darken their contrast, even pick up their highlights. You make some glow a little bit. I can play individually with their color balance. You know, give some more yellow, more cyan, maybe less green, especially in the highlights. So it kind of pops it out a little bit. So even though it was all shot from the same object, I like that. Even though it's shot all from the same object, I can make it feel like it was lit in different ways, and some of them were. I can even play with the individual saturation of certain shots within reason. But the most effective are going to be levels. And color balance. And I want to get as much kind of rainbow color from this Godzilla mask as possible. From browns and purples to bright greens and yellows. Just to really make it interesting. Now all these flowers are lit pretty much the same, so it might be interesting to play with those too. But you don't want to lose any visual information. So I'm not allowing them to blast out. I'm just changing the temperature and optimizing the histograms a little bit so that these different representations of the white all feel different. Now, if you want to do that really fast and not have to adjust everything individually, I recommend just clicking and then doing image, either auto tone, auto contrast, or auto color. They'll each do something slightly different. Auto tone does auto contrast with auto color. But for this project, I like to use auto color a lot. Not on everything, but on areas where I need it to have a little bit more emphasis. And sometimes if I don't like what it does, I'll put it back. But auto color will usually try to match the temperature of the room. So if it sees that there's like yellow over everything, it will try to knock that back. It's trying to anticipate. Okay, the other thing I might do Once I have this arrangement, and after I've saved my JPEG, let me brighten this one up a little bit. You can even dodge and burn individual layers. Whoops, didn't want to be on the burn tool, I want to be on the dodge tool. Now I'm only on individual layers now. So it doesn't work if I want to dodge over here. So I'm just selecting specific ones and I'll do a little bit of dodging. Because I want to bring a little bit more light into the middle of this, but I don't want it to be all over. So I'm just dodging individual layers a little bit, selecting them with my move tool, and then just dodging only on those single layers that are selected. Even though they might be linked with a lot of others, by doing this, I'm selecting just individual frames. And that can help increase the eye movement around. And you can do the same thing with burning. With that layer, I think I might even shift the saturation a little bit. So I can shift the hue. Get a little bit of orange in there. And then with this one, maybe make it a little bit brighter in some parts. Just the midtones, and then play with saturation, because I want it a lot bluer. Not unrealistically so, but just kind of more vibrant. And then I can play with the color balance. So they start to really look like individual exposures layered on top of each other. All those angles start to matter. And then I notice things that look like they're close to verticals or horizontals, like that. And I think, that's too close to a horizontal or vertical. So let me select that one individual layer, and let me tilt it a little bit more. Oh, it's linked, so let's unlink that layer by clicking on the chain link, and then break the link a little bit. Or, and this is the final step, maybe take it out completely. You know, maybe you don't need as many. Shift that a little bit more blue as well. All right. So my final step is to think of it as a finished art piece. Think of it with the white behind. Maybe even open up the JPEG that you saved, which is before some of this processing. And you can see the difference there.